Hello, welcome to Knitting Keeps Me Sane with Dr. Sane Knitter, and I'm Dr. Sane Knitter. It's been quite a while since I last posted, since I last recorded and posted anything. There are a lot of reasons for that we'll get into in the personal section, but for right now I thought I would just jump into knitting and see what's going on, show everybody, what I've been doing. I've made myself an espresso in an awesome sheepy mug, which makes me so happy. You may hear children noises in the background. I can't escape them. I try, but they find me. So I have been through the gamut here with my knitting. It's just there have been a lot of things that have not been working out at all lately, and in 1 month I cast on and frogged like 6 different projects. It just went through a major knitting slump, and I still have some projects that I've been on the needles for a while that I've put away. I just can't work on. I'm just not feeling it. Even though I look at that project and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. But going to knit on it, I just am not feeling it. I don't know. So those are put away. I'm not even going to delve into those. But I wanted to show you what I'm working on now. And some of them I'm not necessarily feeling either. But anyway, let's just jump in. Oh, so in my nice pineapple bag, because I'm a huge Psych fan, so those of you who know the pineapple references on Psych, this is why this is now my favorite bag. And let's see, it's from Tanai Casey, handmade. Let's see. There you go. There's the label. I don't remember where I got this, so it was probably like Etsy. So I saw an ad for, in the midst of all of my knitting angst, I saw a, not really an ad, but just a notification that there was going to be a mystery knit along with one of my favorite designers, Paper Daisy Creations. And I haven't done a mystery knit along in forever, and 2 other stoles that she had done as a mystery knit along came out really just lovely, beautiful, nice, big, gorgeous shawls. And I thought, okay, this one is, it's called Mountain Musings, and I live in the mountains, and I love living here. It's really been something that has enriched my life greatly, and it's become sort of a central theme of my life. I thought, okay, all right, this will help, this will be something that's like, reflect on things in my life that are working and that bring me comfort and joy, and indulge in my favorite things. And so I signed up, and even though life things I'll discuss later, I wasn't sure if I could keep up, and I wasn't sure if I could finish, but if I could, it would certainly be something that would be a really nice staple in my wardrobe, especially in like the coming 9 months to a year. And I really sort of, just the idea of a nice stole to just drape around me or just to wear on the couch really appealed to me. And so I looked at the kits for this Mountain Musings mystery knit along, and I chose Leaf Peeping and Bohemian Wax Wing from Miss Babs. And I'll insert a picture of the inspiration colorway and then the yarns that went with it. And we have now been given, I have completed 3 of the clues, and I've done a third of the 4th clue, and the 5th clue is due out today, or tomorrow. and not gonna make it. But you know, that's okay. There's an extra week at the end to catch up, and this clue was especially big, and I had especially precious little knitting time this week. So if you're in this knit along and you don't want to see, look away now. But here is so here basically was the first clue, was the big central square. And then clues 2, well, clue 2 ended down here in the square with the brown here. And then this was clue 3 went from here to here. So that was a pretty big clue. And then clue 4, this is just the first third of it. And I've got the other 2 to do. But look at this. All right, I'm going to fold this sort of in half so it's a little easier to see. Because it is gorgeous. Probably should have put these on spare needles, but I didn't. So anyway. So here, and there, the last bit. So it is just gorgeous. But the as you can tell from the inspiration photo, okay, so it's down, so you're safe to look if you didn't want to be have the surprise ruined. The inspiration photo was a fall. Okay, I got distracted from where I was. I was interrupted. So the mystery knit along, I've really been enjoying that. I got a little frustrated about getting behind and not being finished with the clue this week. But after sort of chatting about it on Rav, I actually realized that it was other knitting that's sort of pressing upon me, that I feel those deadlines looming. That sort of took away some of my ability to stay in the moment about the mystery knit along and sort of just revel in the progress. So I'm gonna let myself work on some of these other projects that have deadlines so that I feel that pressure taken off, and then take the pressure off to meet deadlines even for the mystery knit along. Because knitting is fun, it's not supposed to be pressured. Just a minute. So I spent some time on some of these other projects, and that sort of helped. And one of those projects is one of 4 for Christmas that I'm going to be working on, and that is knit in the Pearl Soho Morning yarn. There we go. Sorry it's so blown out. I'm in front of this big window. And the first one that I'm working on, you all know how I love pink. Not at all, but it is one of my daughter's favorite colors, my middle daughter. And this is called Pink Radish, and sort of, that's about what it looks like. So that's a pretty realistic representation. And I was roped into doing this from, yes, an email ad from Pearl Soho. They showed this pattern for, I think it's called house slippers. Hi, baby. Yes. House socks. My printed version of this it's got weird writing all over it. I don't know what happened. The print preview didn't look anything like that, so I don't know. Anyway, they're house socks, and this yarn is a cotton yak blend, and yak is so warm and so soft and luscious and fabulous. So I saw that pattern, and it was just, there are some little cables, and I'll put up a picture of it here. And so it's simple, but it's got some nice cabling in it, and it just looks like a really comfortable, nice sock to wear in the house instead of like slippers. My kids don't really wear slippers, they'll just wear their socks, but it would be better for them to wear something like their normal athletic socks don't really last very long. They get holes right away, and then I end up buying more, which is fine, because I'll buy the big bag and then I'll dye it the color, their favorite color, so it's all color coordinated, and like as long as you've got 2 of them, you've got a match. You don't have to worry about it. You can just, they're all the same. But I thought, going into winter, we're looking at having another really bitter, wet winter again, and I thought it would be really nice for them to have something that's sturdy and hardy that they could wear, not in their shoes, in the house all winter, but that had some nice warmth to it. And really, cotton yak sounded like a really good option for that. So I ordered some colors for my children, and my children are giants. So my oldest 2 have feet larger than I do, and I'm a woman, between a woman small and medium. And then my middle 2, he has feet about my size, and then she has feet just a little bit smaller than mine, maybe just a little bit smaller than the adult small, but close enough that it should be comfortable and have room for growth. So I thought, okay, for the oldest 4, we're good to go. For the younger 2, they won't really care one way or another, but I might use leftovers to make them some booties or something. So I chose pink for my middle daughter, and then I'll show you the other colors in a minute, but I've only really got just a basic start on these. So it's a provisional cast on for the toe that we're gonna Kitchener closed, and then it's got a twisted rib on the top of the foot, and then the back is just stockinette. And it's a really dense gauge, which I'm really liking. It's not the most fun to knit that way, but it works up really quickly, actually. So I thought, well, that sounds good. So I wanted to get the pink ones done first as like a test trial, because it was the smallest size, and then if I needed to change, because I didn't gauge swatch. I don't really do that because my gauge swatches lie. I'll do a big gauge swatch and it just lies, like by at least 1 stitch per inch post blocking. And so anymore, I just start a project, get part of the way through, block it, and if it's wrong, I just start again. Now there have been a few projects that I've actually gauge swatched, but just to make sure I'm in the ballpark, if it's not a fabric or a yarn that I'm not used to knitting in, so that I don't have an idea of what I need to be knitting with to get gauge. So and I had like a ballpark idea of what I should be using, and so I did just start that sock. I've measured it, everything's good. Post blocking, it should be even better. And honestly, with the cotton, I should be able to, you know, they say it's a machine wash yarn, so it should shrink just a little, and for this smallest size, that should be perfect. And even if it doesn't shrink a little, it'll still be good. But let me grab the other colors. Okay, so the pink was for my middle daughter, and then this yellow, it's really sort of it's not really lemony. Ooh, it disappears into my yellow wall. Ooh. All right, it's blown out here, but it's sort of a medium gold color. And it's sort of a sunshiny color, and her favorite color is yellow, so I know she'll love this. And then I got gray. This is turning out a little bit, yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. Gray for my oldest son. And then I got this blue. Ooh, that's turning out even more blue. It's a little more gray than it's showing up here. Okay, well anyway, it's a little more gray than this is showing up. Basically kind of like in the shadow. That's pretty good representation. And then I got green for myself. All right, let's see. It's not really coming up right. It's sort of a cross between celery and grass, if that makes sense. So I'll try to get some decent pictures as I'm working on them as I go. So I'm going to make house socks for the children and me, but the house socks are for Christmas for them. And I'm really kind of excited about giving them that because I think that'll just be fun. And next that I've been working on, still working on my Stockbridge, Sacred Heart Stockbridge. I'm not sure where I was last time I showed it to you, but I've done some of the waist increases, and now I've got just like, I think I've got like one more increase or decrease, I'm not sure which. I've kind of forgotten where I was and need to go back and figure out where I am because this kind of sat for a little while I was working on some other things. But I'm really actually loving it. I just kind of got distracted by the mystery knit along and then some other knitting. So that was Stockbridge, just the Stockbridge cardigan. I'll put a picture in here. So I'm just sort of all over the place today. Okay. I'll save this project. Let's do this one first. Okay, so this is the Battenberg blanket that I am working on crocheting out of pink and white for my middle daughter. It was going to be for her birthday, but life got in the way and I am nowhere near finishing. So it'll probably be either for next birthday or just whenever I finish it, because I wanted to use up all those pink minis that I have from the Row 1 Yarns mini subscription, and I don't know, I can work on it for a little while and then I have to stop because pink is not my thing. And so each mini of the pink, I'm just doing all of those squares, but I'm only doing one at a time so that each sort of big block has all of the colors mixed in, and I don't have any of the two that are alike too close together because I wanted it really, mixed up. So doing all of the pink of that color and taking one of them and adding it to the blanket. And so it's kind of slow going that way, but once I get all the squares done, the assembly of putting them together with the white square that ties it all together, and that's how you put it together, that'll work out great, and that'll go a lot faster. But after crocheting on pink for 3 or 4 hours, I'm done for the day in anything pink. So because her house socks are also pink, I sort of have to pick and choose, like how long I'm going to work on the pink thing today. But anyway, next is I'm working on show you this pattern. It is all over color work. The Faroese Junior Sweater by Pernille Cordes. I'm guessing that's what it is. Sorry, the creases sort of mess with that, but it's an all over color work. It's adorable. But it's in a blue that's almost a navy. And I'm not a big fan of navy. I love blue, but navy is just not my favorite shade of blue. So I get a little burned out. So here's what I have. It's a little blown out. Sorry about that. But anyway. And that's, it has generous sizing since it's a Nordic pattern. I noticed that their sizes just in general tend to be larger than I would consider for a similar size when knitting for children. I haven't really done a lot of adult Nordic knitting. So that I started that in the second size, whatever that was, and it was coming out much larger than I'd anticipated because I was trying to knit a 0 to 6 month size, I think. I forget, but it was coming out much larger, and I was like, what in the world is going on? And then I stopped to think about it and look at the pattern and realize that the finished measurements of the size that I was knitting, it was coming out exactly correct as written. I didn't stop to think about that fact that it was bigger than I was thinking, because it was in metric, and I'm used to imperial, and I didn't translate. I just sort of roughly guessed that the size would correspond to what I expected. I made an assumption, and I was completely wrong. So I cast on the smaller size, and it'll fit the age that I expect. I mean, my kids are big, but not quite that big, and maybe I just don't like that much extra ease on sweaters. I don't know, but it's coming out as measured in the pattern, so the pattern as written is absolutely correct. I just chose the measurements wrong. So I started it, and then I had to frog it and start again, and that's as far as I've gotten with all my other knitting, and then my knitting slump. Otherwise I really should have gotten a lot farther along with it. But whatever, I mean, it's knitting, and it's not like the child that's going to wear this is going to outgrow it before the time comes for them to wear it. By the time it's finished, I mean, I've got a year before that child is going to wear it. So, and I chose that specifically on purpose. So, all right, next. Okay, so I'm knitting this baby sweater. And it's a circular yoke, top-down baby sweater. It's the Mini Ginsberg. And, all right, well, I'm just going to stop messing with that. So these are all, so you can see the shaping there with the little increases. Goodness. There it goes. And this is all from Stash. I wanted to knit something from Stash, and I had been looking at this for a while, and with these little baubles here in gold, and then this really rich autumnally burnt red. It's just gorgeous. Now this neckline, actually, it folds down, and you don't actually see that. So what you see is this, if it weren't blown out. And this is gorgeous. This is absolutely gorgeous, but I am not feeling it. I don't know. I think I was feeling it for socks in this yarn. I don't know, I just never cast it on, but I wanted to knit something beautiful from Stash, and I thought this would be a good use of it, and it really is. It really, objectively, I can see that this is just absolutely gorgeous. Okay? It's absolutely gorgeous, but I'm having a hard time making myself knit on it. So I've put it on hold, and if it doesn't get worn by the child that I was anticipating wearing it, then there will be other children coming along. I have lots of friends who have babies, and eventually my children will have children, and if it has to wait that long, I'm okay. But I will finish it. It's just right now I'm not feeling knitting it. It's just so another time I'm sure it'll feel better. There's another knit that I'm working on that is not here, so I'm going to go grab it. So hang on. I totally forgot to tell you what yarns those were from Stash. The white is just a Knit Picks cream, Knit Picks, Cascade 220 fingering, and the russety color is Malabrigo. It's a single ply, and I don't have the ball band to tell you what the colorway was. It's been in my stash probably 7 or 8 years. And the gold was a mini from the Row 1 yarns. And then the Faroese Junior sweater. These yarns are not there. Just a second. It is, and I'll tell you because I saved it in my projects. It is not saved. Oh me. Okay, so it was Neighborhood Fiber Co. Palisades in the blue, and then the white is Roland Park. Very nice winter white. And then I have another color that I'm going to do something else with another blue. And so anyway, so those are the Neighborhood Fiber Co. organic worsted. I don't typically like to knit with a lot of worsted, but you'll see that a lot of these projects are kind of in worsted. And as long as I have a fingering weight project to intersperse with the worsted, it's really okay with my hands. Alright, so the next project that I'm working on is also in blue, and it is going to be the Dog Star pullover. I had just had who that was a second ago, and then I lost it. Tin Can Knits, of course. If it's not Tin Can Knits, Andrea Mowry, or Petite Knit, I'm probably not. It's probably not one of my knitting. I seem to be casting on a lot of their stuff lately. So this again is in, you know, a blue, but here's the bottom, and this is as far as I've gotten, and I've just got plain stockinette to do now for about 4 inches, I think. So I'm knitting the 6 to 12 month size. It's for a friend's baby who was born this summer, and I didn't have enough lead time before the baby was born to knit this for her. So I'm giving it to her for Christmas. And the colors that I'm using, so if you go into Rav and you look at some of the versions of Dog Star, you'll see that there's one that has only 4 color variation in the color work. Instead of, I think it's like 5 or 6. And I really was impressed with how that showed the pattern and the shaping of the design. And so I'm going to do that as well. And so my main color is this blue, and what I'm using is Rowan Norwegian wool. And so I've got the blue, and then there's this it's coming up orangey, but it's really let me see. Oh, That's not really getting it either. And adjust. Woo! Okay. It's really sort of a cherry red. It's sort of a primary Crayola red. And then I've got gold and winter white as well. I don't know what they've got number colors on here, but the gold and the winter white. So that I'm going to make for her for Christmas. So this has a deadline as well, which again, that is what part of what's contributed to some of my anxiety about my knitting, is that I've got 4 pairs of house socks, and then this knitting, and then I've got some other knitting that I'll talk to you about that I have not cast on that have deadlines. And then the mystery knit along has a deadline of a very soon deadline, but still a deadline. And I'm like, pressure! Take the pressure off.
Hello.
Hi.
She accidentally did this.
Oh, yes, I did.
You're welcome.
Oh, my head has not been in the game lately. Okay, I went to trim his hair, which I use just these clippers with the 1-inch length. That's what they like. That's what we like. It's good. I started doing it without the guard on.
Mama, I'm sorry for embarrassing you.
It's okay, baby. I deserve it. I'm sorry for scalping you.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry. I love you.
I love you too.
I love you.
Love you too. Anyway, I'm gonna go mess with Lily's hair or something.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. I started doing that and I just was like, oh, what did I just do? I was praying and praying and praying that when I finished it properly that it wouldn't be as noticeable. It's just hair. His hair grows about 1 inch a month, so in a month that'll be as long as it was meant to be trimmed up to. Oh, I apologized profusely through my tears and gave him $50 to spend on Amazon. And a Coke, no, root beer, and some Oreos. Ah. Oh, goodness. My poor baby. Anyway. I don't even know where I was. This is what, my head has not been in the game lately. Anyway, so he's thankfully okay with it, and when we go out in public, he'll probably just wear his ball cap. Thankfully, it's fall and winter, so that's normal. Okay, anyway, that's Dog Star by Tin Can Knits, and I might need a minute. Okay, what was next? What was next? Okay, so I had some recording glitches, and apparently this part didn't get shown, so let me show you this. Some of you may remember that I've become somewhat obsessed with Ravenswood Fiber Co. yarn, and for like the last year I've just been collecting colorways. Well, so I've cast on this baby blanket in, I have a bunch of blues and purples, and so I'm going to alternate purple and then blue and then purple and then blue for as long as I'd like it to be, and then each one is just going to be a little bit of a different texture stitch. And so this one, and this is, it's coming out more gray, but it's definitely much more of a purple. And so the stitch here is, it's hard to see, but basically I alternate a row of just plain stockinette and then with a row of knit and pearls, but instead of the pearls lining up to do like the fisherman's rib, they're alternating. So instead of it being like a seed stitch or a moss stitch, it's got that seed stitch or moss stitch, but separated by a row of just plain stockinette. And so that's what I'm doing with this one. And so this is going to be a baby blanket. It doesn't necessarily look that wide right here, but I think it'll actually sort of grow a bit. And honestly, if it's not as big as I would like, I'll just put on a border. I'm just sort of working up the yarns, and I've got a bunch of blues and purples. So here's like, it's coming untangled. Whoops. So here's a nice blue. It's actually, there you go. That's a pretty good representation. And here's the Ravenswood Fiber Co. Logo. And I'm actually, you know, this is good like TV knitting in that I don't really have to look too much. They're just plain pearls and knits, and it's pretty mindless knitting, and I'm not using a pattern, and it's the Aran weight, and it's just so soft, just so luscious. It's gonna be beautiful, and I just can pick whatever textured stitch I want. So that's fun, and I'm loving it. I think that's everything that I'm working on. I have some things that I have cast on that I'm not working on. That's just sort of in timeout right now. But I don't feel bad about that, and I'm not going to go over those right now because it'll just give me guilt. But as you can see, like a lot of these things that I've cast on and that I'm knitting on, they're really deadline knitting. They're really, they need to be done by Christmas. Or the mystery knit along is supposed to be done, I think the last day of the MCAL is October 20th. And, you know, there are 2 more clues to do before then. So I don't know, I just don't know if I'll make the deadline. But, you know, I talked to some people on Rav, and they're like, we're knitting together, I'm not making the deadline, and we'll just keep chatting. And I'm like, you know, you're right. That's a very healthy, that's a very healthy outlook, and you're absolutely right. My OCD type A perfectionist flared her ugly head, and like I had to squash her back down. No, I had to appease that side of me, because, you know, it's a part of my personality, and you just have to sort of admit to who you are and make accommodations and just, you know, flow with it. So that's what I've done. Okay, so some things that I actually want to cast on, as if I didn't have enough knitting, but I do have a few other people that I want to knit for Christmas, and I thank Instagram for this bit of enabling. So I saw some people had been knitting by Petite Knit the Sophie scarf, and it's just a cute little, it's in DK, which honestly I have some, but I don't have a lot of DK in my stash. That's more of my mom's weight of yarn to use, preferred weight. I typically use fingering for anything that's for me. And the worsted things that I've been doing here are like baby knits that really, you know, need to be a little bit more durable, or it's like the house socks that, again, you want that durability of the thicker yarn, and whereas, and you know, a little bit of immediate gratification. Yeah. So, but with this Petite Knit pattern, I can hold two skeins of, 2 threads of fingering, hold it double, and knit this too, which of course I have a ton of in stash. And so I have 3 girlfriends that I'd like to knit something for Christmas, and they all live in places that, you know, it gets cold enough that you could absolutely use something here, but not like a huge big, you know, Arctic cowl or shawl, but a little something to keep your neck warm. So I haven't picked out the yarn for that yet, but I need to. But I'm not letting myself play with that yet until I get something done. This is how I'm holding off the more pressure for deadline knitting monster at bay. But I saw that, and it was just such a simple little thing, but it looked so elegant depending on how depending on how you styled it. So, okay. So stash enhancement and things that I want to cast on. So this is just stash that I'm going to use for this. Stash enhancement that I've made for projects that I want to knit. Here we go. So I've got, again, Purl Soho. I don't usually knit with them, but I was just sort of looking for options here, and I have a couple sweaters that I want to cast on. So the first one that I want to talk about it's called Jenna's Comfy One by Anna Catherine Weiss and Jennifer W. And it's in their Ravelry store. It's about $7.55. And it uses 2 fingering weight held together to equal a DK. And the yarn that I'm going to use is the Purl Soho Broom, which is a DK weight, but it's mohair, wool, and silk. So it does sort of do that 2 fingering of 1 mohair, 1 wool together quite nicely. And yeah, that's a pretty accurate color depiction right there. And I want this as like a beautiful winter Christmas sweater, but of course it's not going to happen this Christmas. I don't know when it'll happen, maybe next year, who knows. But this would be something totally classic that I would absolutely wear, not around the house doing chores, but you know, like just go out shopping or whatever. But I want to do this and add silver beads. I think that would just be an absolutely gorgeous sweater. And that's why I chose basically a simple pattern, because I didn't want some elaborate pattern and then the beads thrown in and it's in the mohair and have everything just sort of too many things to look at. I'm sure there are beautiful sweaters where they've combined all of those things beautifully, but I haven't done a lot with adding beads and adding mohair, and so I wanted to try to keep it a little bit simple. So anyway, that's one sweater I want to cast on. The other one, and again, I will try to put pictures up instead of just me babbling on, is Campanule by Hellet Zell. Okay, so it's technically not Hell et Zell, it's Hell a Zell, I'm sure, you know, as like a French or I don't even know if it's French, but you know what I mean, like. Alright, now the babbling is gone. So the Campanule, and it's got that beautiful crossover ascot-like neckline on it. And let me see what they call it. Yeah, it is French. Haha, I'm not a complete idiot. Shawl cowl neckline. So there we go. And I'm going to knit the bulk of the sweater in the Purl Soho Broom in winter white, heirloom white? Heirloom white. So there you go. That's a good representation of that color. It's a very, very clean, but not like crisp and stark white. It's a very, very sort of pleasing white. It's not ecru, it's not really quite cream, although it's more cream on the cream side of white than like crisp white. And so that'll be for the body, but then I'm going to use this tussock super fine kid mohair 60% and then 40% silk in the same heirloom white. Hear my dog barking. She wants to go out and play. Anyway, I'm going to use that held double on the shawl collar neckline so that it's extra like luxurious looking and feeling, and it'll be different. Just to sort of play up the luxury of that shawl collar with a slightly different texture. than the broom, which is just gorgeous too. And so those are going to be that sweater. And part of why I chose that sweater, because aside from the shawl collar, almost like an ascot, well, not ascot, the shawl crossover neck, it has a fairly simple body, just plain stockinette, just simple lines, is because, again, I want to use beads. And my original thought was that it'd be really nice to have like red beads, because the red and the white is such a classic combination. I don't know if I'm going to do that because I don't typically wear a lot of red in my wardrobe. So, but I did want it to be very clearly a luscious Christmas winter sweater. But I was trying to think of what other color would work, and I can't decide whether blue or green would work with that, because those are both colors that I wear a lot in my wardrobe. But then I think, oh, but red and the white is such a classic, such a classic combination that maybe it could become, at least in that one outfit, a staple of my wardrobe. Maybe it would be right. So I don't know. So, you know, if anybody has an opinion, you can weigh in one way or the other. I just don't know. I've got quite a bit of time before I cast on, so I might just try to swatch with all three and see which one I like best. The beads will not be on the shawl collar, by the way. That's just on the body. So we'll see. And so those are my knitting plans. I mentioned a couple of designs that I've made. I've got a design that I have in mind for a young child sweater, and then an adult version that I want to knit for my youngest son and for me. But I haven't cast that on. I don't know when I will. If I don't just stop what I'm doing and do it, it'll probably never get done. But I have other things that I want to do. Okay, so that's the knitting content. Now on for some life stuff. This wall used to be that color, and now it's sort of a clear yellow, which I love bright colors in my home, and I have not, since moving here, changed anything style-wise. So I decided this summer that I really needed to just go ahead and do that, and so this wall is now a bright yellow, and I'm going to do each section at a time. This back here, so the ceiling is even that same, it's a gray-green. So I say grayish as in not gray beige, but it's like a gray green beige, neutral. And it was fine when we moved in. It was a nice clean palette, but it's in the winter, which we're about to move into, it's really, it creates a very somber feel. And I like color, you know, it's I like rich color, and those of you who have seen, who had previously seen updates of when I was decorating our previous house, I like bold colors. Bold colors. So like I had done the main level of our previous house in sort of a Caribbean aqua color, and it was gorgeous, and it might have been just too much for other people, but when I saw it, it just made me smile. So it made me happy to live in this space with bright colors. So this is going to continue to be yellow, and it's pretty washed out right now. So when the sun is coming in, it washes it out to sort of an off-white, and that is exactly what I want. And then in the evening and in low light settings, it creates a very warm, much more gold color. So in low light levels, it's much more of a warm golden hue, and so it makes it really cozy in here. And I know a lot of people don't like yellow, but for like living spaces, but I really like it. I really enjoy it. And in our 6 months of like clouds and snow, it really is very, you know, it creates like a fireplace almost, only it's the paint of the wall, and I just really enjoy it. But in the kitchen, I will eventually be redoing this, and I'm going to, So this is not real, like it's wood, but it's got a veneer, and so it's not. It's just a really well done paint job, really, the veneer. So I'm gonna paint these white eventually, and then I'm gonna redo the countertops with soapstone because I'm I'm a scientist. I've spent most of my life in like labs of one sort or another, and the soapstone is almost indestructible and fabulous. So that's what we're going to have as our countertops. So the kitchen will end up probably being black and white with blue accents. And the wall here is going to end up probably being sort of an off-white. I've sort of considered just doing it a light blue maybe, but I haven't decided. So this space eventually will be different as well, but I'm not going to mess with it until I've decided. I have picked out what the kids' rooms are going to look like, and they helped me pick out those colors. I just haven't had a chance to actually paint that at all, because I really am just sort of doing one wall at a time, because then it's least disruptive to our lives, and I can just throw in some painting in progress as I'm able to, which actually hasn't been much lately. But so there's that. That's household stuff. Homeschooling. We've sort of started a fresh year, picking up, for some of us, picking up where we left off in certain subjects for our break, and then for some of them starting with a new book in math, and so we've had a little bit of a hard time making ourselves get to it, but it's becoming a little easier every day, which I knew it would. But anyway, at the beginning of the month, in just a few days, I'll be adding another subject. We've just been doing 2, just to get into the habit again of doing school every day and fitting it in with our chores and our outside activities and things like that. Because we do sort of an unschooling, book schooling mesh. We do some book learning, and we do some testing, but we also spend a lot of time on life skills and spending time outdoors in imaginative play, and a lot of time indoors in doing imaginative play. Like the kids do D&D a lot, and that's great, and it includes a lot of mythology and some social experimentation. So, and like creative writing and storyline and plot devices and things like that. So we do that. And so adding in book work into that. And the kids are also learning like cooking and laundry and yard care, like mowing the yard, helping take care of the gardens, doing soil testing, which we did about a month ago, and putting up fencing and things like that. So I think I've got some mohair. Ugh. Okay. And we are planning on getting ducks in the spring, and so we're planning out where we want to put them, where to put their pen, so that they are separate from the dogs, who have never been around birds that they, were supposed to accept as part of the family instead of like, things to chase. And how to protect them from the wild animals. We've had a lot of things with the bears. Neighbor in particular has had a lot of trouble with the bears going after her chicken feed and killed one of her roosters, and she had a coyote kill her geese, and so like as we add more animals, we know that that's going to become more of a problem that we'll have to deal with. And so we're just sort of planning out how to protect the livestock. And I only use air quotes because we're not going to have that many, and we don't really intend to have like a full barnyard, at least not right now. I mean, I may eventually want a couple of sheep, but I don't want a full herd of sheep because I don't really want to do a lot of lambing. And I don't really want to do a lot of having to worry about culling the herd for meat. It's really more of I'd like to keep them for shearing, and I just don't know that it's worth that for us, at least not right now. So, but I mean, these are some long-term plans. I may eventually want to have sheep and have a small herd and deal with all of the things that that entails. But I would have to do a whole lot more education and a whole lot more training than I'm willing to do right now. So that's sort of off the table, but still in the back of my mind is something that we might want to do. We've added apple trees and cherry trees, some of which have, like, all the apple trees have done well, and some of the cherry trees have done okay. But the growing season this year has been really not great. Spring came late and was cool, and our tomatoes have not really done a very good job of ripening. We've brought a bunch of them in, and after a week or so of being inside, some of them are starting to ripen. But I've been experimenting with some green tomato recipes. I made a pico de gallo verde the other day, and that was actually really good. I actually like green tomatoes. They're a little more tart instead of acidic, the way that red ripe tomatoes are often quite acidic. Whereas the green tomatoes are a little bit just kind of like tart. And I like tart, just in general. So that worked really well when I made the enchiladas the other night, and so that was good. Next, I want to make use the green tomatoes for a pizza sauce. You just sort of saute up some peppers and tomatoes, and you spread that on your pizza with cheese and stuff. And so I want to try that. And then I'm going to make an actual green tomato salsa. So these are some things to sort of experiment with from the food from our garden. And we have some potatoes that are growing, which those are actually hard to grow. At least the learning curve is apparently quite steep. But we just tossed some in the ground and of tomatoes that we had bought from the store that they just developed, big eyes on them, and so we're like, okay, let's just plant it and see. Let's see what happens. And they've been growing, so we'll see what we get out of there. Some of our carrots, which start out small and stumpy and weird looking, have really grown much better, so that's kind of cool. And they're so sweet and so good, so fresh from the garden is just absolutely hands down so much better. And we had green bean soup with fresh green beans, so that was really nice too. So that's all the homesteady stuff and all the homeschooly stuff. Now, the reason I really have not podcast in a few months is because a week after the last podcast, I was in the ER with kidney stones. And I've dealt with those on a recurring basis. This is not a fun process. It's quite painful. The worst pain ever, even much worse than childbirth. Like this is, So I'm in the ER, and it's kidney stones. I'm like, okay, cool. I know what's going to happen here, and I had felt that this is. I had realized off and on for a few months that there was something probably trying to work its way out. And if it didn't work its way out on its own, I would have to do like the lithotripsy, which I've had done once before. And that wasn't too bad of a process. So I'm like, okay, cool, we'll do that. Well, apparently I was 5 weeks pregnant. Surprise! So, the first time I found out that I had kidney stones, I was pregnant as well, but that was found when I was 18 weeks pregnant. And at the time, this was with the son you saw, they were absolutely unwilling to do anything about the kidney stones. They inserted an F tube, unfortunately not using enough painkiller so that I did not feel every poke through the back. A little traumatized. Anyway, like you try to have somebody stab you with a hollow tube into your kidney and not be a little bit traumatized. That was really horrible. They had used some morphine at the time, but it had, I metabolized painkiller very quickly, and so it had sort of worn off, or was in the process of wearing off, or it was not at full effectiveness, and it was awful. Oh my God. Anyway, so I am in the ER. You're pregnant and you have a kidney stone, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what? I was imagining a repeat of that whole pregnancy, and but I was like, okay, I will go to UW, I will get a urologist and an OB there, and we'll work it out, we'll discuss it. And I mean, the research that I had done at the time was that the lithotripsy, or, you know, should be safe in pregnancy. And so I went in armed with research that I had studied, and the urologist and the OB were basically on the same page as I was, and they're like, no, now we really, you know, that 11 years ago, 10 years ago, almost 11, so it was 11 years ago, because he'll be turning 11, and it was during his pregnancy. It's like we have changed sort of the general protocol, is that we try to wait until the second trimester, which of course at the time that I was pregnant with him, it was the second trimester, but they were still unwilling to do anything. But now 10 years later, they're like, yes, yeah, we do that now. So the goal was to wait to get me into the second trimester when the risks of anesthesia were almost negligible. Like they really, studies had shown that there was basically no risk to the child, and adverse outcomes were generally attributable to the mother's condition of why she needed the surgery, or negative consequences of the surgery because of the surgery itself causing adverse effects due to complications, which they wouldn't have expected in just a simple lithotripsy. So they kept doing tests to make sure that the kidney was functioning fine, and they gave me painkiller to deal with the inevitable spasms and scraping of the stones. And at a certain point, the kidney tests were indicating that it was just, things were just not as good as they would like. They were concerned about permanent damage to the kidney, and they decided that they really could not wait until the second trimester. And we were close to the second trimester, but signs of potential kidney damage were increasing, and they wanted to make sure that, you know, because if the kidney failed, then the risk of miscarriage was almost certain, according to them. Like, if the kidney failed, my body would likely just shut down a lot of things, and it would be fatal to the baby. So we decided to go ahead with the lithotripsy, and I was totally fine with that. All of my research indicated that even in the first trimester, it's typically very safe, and that most of the adverse outcomes were attributable to the condition, very few to the anesthesia, and even then it wasn't a strong correlation. So we went ahead with that, had a stent placed, and the stent and all of that was not comfortable. Moving around caused a lot of spasming, so I was sort of down for a lot of that after the surgery, and that was fine. That was fine. Go in, had the stent removed, and so this all took place around 12 weeks, so 7 weeks after the initial diagnosis of, diagnosis of pregnancy and kidney stones. Yay. Okay. But when the stent was removed, the kidney was, I was in near constant renal colic for almost a week, and then recurring renal colic for another 2 weeks. Spacing out more. The more that I laid down, the better it was, but for those first 3 days after the stent was removed was incredible. incredibly painful and incredibly uncomfortable and highly distressing. And after that, you know, as long as I stayed on top of taking the Flomax every night and taking some of the painkiller on a regular basis to keep the renal colic down and to keep, you know, and keeping the fluids up, of course, is a big thing. But I was doing that, and that was a no-brainer. Of course I was doing that. I'd been doing that. Finally, after about 3 weeks, things calmed down. The renal colic calmed down and things returned to normal. I started feeling stronger. Things were better. The kidney function was good again. So it was clearly the right choice. So all of that is resolved. Now we're just looking at the pregnancy. And my last pregnancy, so all of my pregnancies, I've had very huge babies and long labors, but very healthy outcomes. The last pregnancy, again, big baby, but I developed preeclampsia and had to be induced at 36 weeks. He was a champ. He had some breathing difficulties to begin with, but was fine. He didn't need to stay in the NICU. He stayed in the NICU step-down unit for half of the day and then went back at one point for low blood sugar and jaundice for like a couple of hours and then was brought back. And so he really did very well. And we were sent home, but I had to be readmitted for blood pressure. So keeping that in mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm not any younger, and the initial blood pressures that we've been doing have been high for me, not considered normal statistically, but significantly abnormal for me in pregnancy, like my pregnancy with my youngest. And so we're just watching that, being very careful, and if the blood pressure hits a certain threshold, sort of the lowest threshold for diagnosing preeclampsia and medicating for it, when I hit that, we'll medicate, and we're just keeping a strict watch on that, and we're doing growth scans at every appointment. And so far, she looks good, but she's small. None of my children have ever measured under 78th percentile at any point in any pregnancy. And I mean, I'm even talking 8 weeks, 12 weeks. None of them have been less than 78th percentile. And at the 18-week growth scan, she was 33rd percentile, or 38th percentile. There we go, 38th percentile. And so I was concerned because statistically for a population, this is fine and normal. This is good, you know. But given my history of large children, you know, all 6 of my children have been huge. I was a little concerned. And so the doctor said, fine, we're going to do a growth scan, knowing that intrauterine growth restriction is a big consequence for preeclampsia, and we're on watch for that. We wanted to make sure that this wasn't something that we were seeing. And so on the last growth scan, she was at a 44th percentile. So it's still within the noise, but she's not dropping percentiles. She could be gaining, or she could be tracking, depending on, you know, where the error is in where she really is. So I'm sort of put at ease about that. Maybe she just got the small genes in the family. My husband's grandmother is not even 5 feet tall. My great grandmother was 4'10", and her husband was 6'4". So we've got extreme heights in the family, and so maybe she's just, you know, in the minority of height in our family. So, but we're watching that, and it is a girl, and so I've picked her spirit animal for her. She's going to be the deer. So we've got this whole woodland theme going on with the spirit animals for the children. And so yes, so that all has been what's been going on in our lives. The house sold, but there was some drama with that, of course. We got 2 offers the first day that we showed the house, the first day that it was open, and we could have gone to a bidding war because we also had other viewings coming up. But the one offer was for asking, and the other one was significantly over. But the one that was significantly over was a VA loan, and we knew that would be a little bit complicated of a process. Having, my mother used a VA loan before in buying a house, and so I knew I was comfortable with that process. I figured that anything that would come up would probably come up for us in a standard mortgage assessment and inspection anyway, because we'd already sort of taken care of those things in setting the house up. We sort of kept that in mind. And so rather than do a bidding war, we just accepted the higher offer, knowing that if we did go to a bidding war, the guy he had put all in. Like, this was his best offer. And you really have to respect someone who's willing to just put it on the table and be like, this is what I've got. And so we went with the VA loan, with his offer, and retired military. He's retired, and so I know that he'll live in this house. He'll take care of it. He'll appreciate it. This is not just I just felt like this would be a good choice for someone, the next owner, the next phase of this house's history. And so we did have some stuff with that. We ended up finding termites, which was not a cool thing. And then, I don't know, there were some other little things that came up that we fixed, or that he had to do just stuff. So we finally closed after just over a month, and that's done. That's all settled. I've been trying to find contractors to come out here to work on stuff that we want to do to our house to reinvest the money from that sale. We want to redo a downstairs bathroom and put in some hardwood floors. And I've been having trouble finding people that'll come out to our area because it is rather remote. And some people are willing to come out, but they're working 9 months in advance. Like, they've got at least 9 months out, and that's actually fine with us, given that the baby is due mid-January, although they're not going to let me go past the end of December due to concerns, and I'm really cool with that if she makes it that far before having to be induced. So you can see how all of these deadlines, and oh, it's a baby! All of these like Christmas deadlines and pregnancy deadlines and all these extra appointments and stuff. So you can see how I've been a little bit stressed about these things while trying to keep up the homeschooling and keep up the homestead planning and try to plan and find renovations and so, I mean, that has been my life. So, yes, here I am at 25 weeks. And this is where I am. Yeah, there's a baby in there. So, yes, this is, I am big as a house already. I have totally like just shot out there. My body knows what it's doing in carrying babies. And it's just like, we're just going to expand outward now. By the end, I'm going to look like a house. Whatever. Normalize real pregnancy, people. You don't stay slim and trim while you're pregnant. Yes, you want that? Okay. So that's everything. That's all the stuff that I can think of that anybody might be interested in. Now we're done recording. I had a few fits and starts, people. My brain has not been on it. It's been everywhere. So here I am. This has been my life. I hope to see you again another time. Enjoy your life and your knitting or crafting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.